How's it going, everyone? A bit of surprising news dropping yesterday as one of the more notable recent live service titles will be shutting down here very shortly in June of 2025. That game, of course, is XDefiant, and this is a game that is not that old. XDefiant saw its official launch back in May of this year, so this is a very quick turnaround for the game shutting down or announcing its shutdown, and XDefiant was a game that had a little bit of steam, a little bit of heat behind it, and I felt like there might have been some potential for a long-term success. Initially, that heat, that momentum that this game had dissipated fairly quickly, and that is just the story of live service games. We've talked about this up and down, left and right. This is how the world works when it comes to live service titles, but let's go over the full message, and let's also go over some of the unfortunate news about Ubisoft San Francisco and Ubisoft Osaka. Let's go over that first, actually. Those are both shutting down, and up to 277 staff are going to be laid off. Half of the XDefiant team will be moved to other projects as well, so our hearts go out to any of those people that are affected. I saw somebody on social media already talking about how they were getting laid off from Ubisoft. It's always an unfortunate reality when it comes to the game development world, but yeah, moving on to the message from XDefiant executive producer Mark Rubin on the game's end of service. Hello, XDefiant fans. I am unfortunately here to announce that XDefiant will be shutting down. Starting today, December the 3rd, new downloads and player registrations will no longer be available. We will release our Season 3 content in the near future, exact date to be determined, and the servers will remain active until June 3rd, 2025. For those who purchased the Ultimate Founders Pack, you'll receive a full refund. Players who made any purchases within the last 30 days will also be fully refunded. Those refunds should be happening automatically within 8 weeks of today, and you can find more details on our official website, xdefiant.com. A few years ago, Ubisoft and the San Francisco development team embarked on a bold adventure to develop a new arcade shooter called XDefiant. It was from the start an incredible challenge. Not only were we trying to shake things up in the genre by removing skill-based matchmaking while bringing back a more old-school arcade shooter experience, but we were also diving into the high-risk, high-reward realm of free-to-play. And for that, I want to applaud not only the development team, but also Ubisoft leadership for taking that chance. Free-to-play in particular is a long journey. Many free-to-play games take a long time to find their footing and become profitable. It's a long journey that Ubisoft and the teams working on the game were prepared to make until very recently, but unfortunately, the journey became too much to sensibly continue. I am, of course, heartbroken to have to be writing this post. Yes, the game has been a personal passion for me for years, and yes, I know that not all challenges lead to victory, but I also want to recognize all of the developers who are being affected by this closure. Each and every one of them is a real person with a real life separate from our own, and they have all put so much of their own passion into making this game, and I hope that they can be proud of what they did achieve. I know that I will always be proud and grateful to have worked with such a great team, a team that really punched above its weight class, and what they achieved is truly remarkable. The early response from players when XDefiant launched was amazing. We broke internal records for the fastest game to surpass 5 million users, and in the end, we had over 15 million players play our game. That is something to be extremely proud of, especially considering how tough this game is. So thank you all of the developers who put their passion into making this game. If there's one thing I hope we can all take away from this experience, it's the importance of open, honest communication between developers and players. This player-first mentality, along with respectful, non-toxic conversations between developers and players, has been one of the standout differences that made XDefiant so special. From my very first post about XDefiant, this was the vision I wanted to champion, and I hope it leaves a positive mark on how the game industry treats its players and communities. To our players, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I want to express the deepest gratitude from the incredible community that has grown around XDefiant. Your passion, creativity, and dedication have inspired us every step of the way. With the utmost of love and respect, Mark Rubin, executive producer. Man, I think a lot of people were surprised by this just because how quickly the game announced the shutdown, how quickly the shutdown will be happening. Now, it's still got 6 months or so. However, they are already stopping new downloads and player registrations. Those are no longer available. They are going to drop Season 3 content, but how much player activity is going to be there with the remainder of the next 6 months, I don't know. However, we can go back and we can go through the greatest hits about live service games. I'm actually surprised though, in the sense of XDefiant, it did have that initial wave of momentum, that initial burst of interest that was certainly there with XDefiant, and I remember a lot of people being taken a little bit aback by it, by how successful that the game was initially and how much momentum that I think the game had. Ultimately, that momentum did dissipate, and you guys, that is what I always say about live service games. Games can come out, games can have an initial level of interest. Where are you gonna settle at? That is ultimately the goal. That is ultimately the only thing that matters. Any game, or I shouldn't say any game, a lot of games can have an initial wave of interest, especially a free-to-play game, that you get people checking it out. But why this game is so hard, why the live service model is so difficult, is not the fact that there is this amount of money that you have to part ways with by playing a live service game. What you really have to part ways with, and the limited currency that all of these games are fighting for, is time. They require an immense amount of time investment, and the ultimate reality is, you cannot even question this. This is a fact of life that there is only so much time in the world, and not all of these live service games can be successful. I'm not here to argue whether or not XDefiant was good. I'm not here to argue whether or not Concord was good. I'm not here to argue whether or not any of these games that were live service focused were good or not. However, they are all fighting an uphill battle that they require so much time investment, and the issue is, there is just a limited amount of time. I look at a game like Spider-Man 2. You drop your $70, you play it for 20-25 hours, you move on with your life on to the next game. XDefiant, they ain't gonna be happy. These live service games ain't gonna be happy if they get your 20-25 hours. No, they're looking for 2,000 to 2,500 hours. That's literally what they are looking for, and obviously that is to an extreme scale, but that is the reality. And Concord, I guess, wouldn't be as fair of a comparison to XDefiant because Concord did have a $40 buy-in price point. XDefiant was totally free to play, which makes it even more paramount that it has that lasting player base because it is literally funded based on concurrent player count, and that concurrent player count investing resources, money into the game. But you get the idea. These games, it's just a difficult game to get into. I was expecting that the game would be kept around for quite a while just because it did have that initial wave, but it is a little bit surprising where they're just ripping the band-aid right off with a game like this. I would have thought, hey, get through 2025, maybe reassess at the end of next year, but maybe they've already just come to the decision, hey, why waste our time? There's no revitalizing this game to the level that we want to get it to. Let's move on to other projects. Let's shut down this game, and let's lay off some of the staff, which is unfortunate. Obviously, half the team moving on to different projects, and hopefully the rest do find their footing. But man, the live service market is a hard market to break into, and I've said it over and over again. I just view it as so many publishers looking at it from the vantage point, and Sony is clearly going through this. Let's throw as much stuff at the wall as we can, and hopefully just a couple of games stick. But when you're trying that methodology, when you're trying that tactic, you're gonna have situations where a lot of games are gonna be shut down. You know, there was a game like Skull and Bones that came out earlier this year that had a live service kind of emphasis to it, but it's a $70 game. That's a little bit different than XDefiant being an outright free-to-play title. It seems like Sony is going the route of their live service outings being $40 games. Helldivers 2, Concord. We'll see how Fair Game turns out. I can't imagine that well, but I've been wrong before. We'll see. We'll see. You know, I don't like to, you know, put the death knell on these games. It's just, man, live service is such a hard game to break into when you're, more than anything, you're fighting against the limited amount of time and you're asking so much out of the consumer. Like, yo, I be complaining about games like Assassin's Creed asking for 80 to 100 hours. These live service games, yeah, they're not being promoted around them having so many quests, them having so many hours of gameplay, but what do they ultimately want? And XDefiant wants well over orders of magnitude more than 80 to 100 hours. Concord, that's a game that ultimately would want way more than 80 to 100 hours of the consumer's game time, and That to me is the biggest issue more than anything that people don't bring up. It's that all of these live service games, yes, it is an oversaturated market, but why is it oversaturated? It's not because they're fighting for the player's dollar, no, it's because they're fighting for the player's time. Yes, the money does matter as well, and some of these games get wild with the microtransactions, but even more than anything, more valuable than money is time, and it's just, you can't manage to juggle a billion live service games. You can't play a live service game for 20-25 hours, move to the next one and get your money's worth or get your time worth, and then the developer and publisher is also satisfied. If you played XDefiant for 20-25 hours, you didn't spend $1 on it and you move, they ain't satisfied with that. They ain't happy about that. I'll tell you, Ubisoft as a publisher ain't happy about that. Like Sony would be by selling you a copy of Spider-Man 2 for $70, you playing it for 20-25 hours, and then you moving on with your life. But yeah, I'm a broken record as far as that's concerned, but I think it's going to take a lot of L's for the market to course correct. And I don't even know if the market will ever course correct, in the sense that there are executives that are making decisions and they see the potential of the live service gravy train. And I don't know if it's a case. And I don't want to reduce these games. XDefiant obviously had a passionate team working on it, but I'm just talking about it from the lens of somebody greenlighting all of these games. To me, it does feel like a lot of the times it's like, let's just chuck as much stuff at the wall as we can, and as long as we get a couple of pop-offs, we're golden. But then you'll get stories like XDefiant where the game is shutting down, and this one is a little bit more startling because of the immense success that the game initially had. Unfortunately, the initial success versus where you're at 6 to 9 months, where you're at 6 to 9 months after release is so much more important than that initial wave of interest. But that'll do it for me. Let me know all of your guys' thoughts in the comment section down below. Quite the story to follow here, and I guess the story has kind of concluded for XDefiant, as it will be officially shutting down on June the 3rd of next year, and new downloads have already stopped. That's going to do it for me. Sound off with all of your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching, and goodbye. Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and if you're already subscribed, do us a favor and hit the bell icon. This way you'll be notified whenever we post a new video. That's the best way to keep up with all of our uploads, and we usually try to upload 2 videos a day. And with the bell icon hit, you'll be notified whenever we do upload a video. As always, thanks for watching.